inflationary or deflationary gap, we need to understand that one concept that is called the full employment level. What is the meaning of the full employment level? That all the resources are at full employment level. Whenever you read the book, then you will find this term that, okay, national income is determined at full employment. So what does it mean, the full employment? Full employment means that the resources which are used for manufacturing the goods and services, like what are the factors of productions? Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurs. So these resources are used for the productions of the goods and services. So these are fully utilized. These are fully engaged. So nothing is left. So all the resources are fully utilized for manufacturing the goods and services. This is the very simple way to understand that the full employment. The resources are at full employment. So at full employment, what is the level of production or national income? That is called the full employment level of income. Okay, I hope that term is clear to you, because this is very important to understand. This is the inflationary gap and deflationary gap. So let's start with that. What is the inflationary gap? So let's start with what is simple diagram. Okay, then I will give you the definition of what is called the inflationary gap. So let's say that it is an open economy and with the presence of government, everything is there. So we assume that it is an open economy. It is an open economy where government is actively participating. Government is actively participating. Now, in this scenario, that what would be the equilibrium national income? How the national income equilibrium will be determined? Now, in this case, just I talked about that equilibrium, when we incorporate the government, then our AD curve was this. This was our AD curve. Now this one will be also the AD curve when we incorporate the open economy, that means rest of the world. So there will be nothing more changes is there, but it looks like the same, that upward sloping straight line with positive intercept but flatter than 45. So this is the AD curve. That means AD equal to here C plus I plus G plus X minus A. Everything is there. Okay. Now what is the aggregate supply? This is the aggregate supply, 45-degree line. A 45-degree line. So this is the aggregate supply, and this is the equilibrium point where AD and AS intersect at this point. So the equilibrium level of national income will be this. This is, we call it the full employment level of income. This income we call it the income, national income at full employment. So YE at, you can write it down here, at full employment. Full employment. That means that all the resources are fully utilized. Nothing is left. All the resources are fully utilized, and this will be the equilibrium level of national income. Now, suppose in this situation that if suppose the government expenditure increases, suppose government expenditure increases, or autonomous investment expenditure increases. Anything can be possible. Either investment increases, or the government expenditure increases, or export increases. Then what will happen? What will be the impact on AD? If either G, I, or X will increase, then what will happen? The AD will increase. Aggregate demand will increase. Or consumption expenditure increases, then AD also increases. So if the AD increases, then the AD curve will shift in which direction? Any increase that leads to the upward rise. So AD curve will shift upward rise. So let's say that due to rising that government expenditure, let's say the new AD curve becomes AD prime. New eddy curve becomes eddy prime. Okay. So if this one will increase aggregate demand, so actually that what would be our the equilibrium? Our equilibrium should be like this. Here will be our equilibrium. Okay. So if this is the equilibrium, new equilibrium, but the question is, suppose it is E1. Suppose it is E1. But is it possible to increase this much of this much? Is it possible to achieve at E1? The answer is no, because all the resources are fully utilized. So that the level of production will not be increased. If the production not increases, there is no question of rise in the national income. So that means that how much of the demand is more? Demand is this much. Let's say this one is E hour here. E hour here. Let's say this one is A. Okay. So this AE amount. So this much is the AYE is our the aggregate demand at current situation, and EYE that is the aggregate supply. Okay. So that means the excess demand this much. So excess demand is how much? AE. And due to this excess demand, what will happen? The inflation will create. There will be inflation in the economy. When the inflation comes? The inflation comes when aggregate demand is more than aggregate supply. That means there is a huge amount of demand in the market, but there is no supply. So naturally, that what will happen? The price level of all the goods and services that will increase, which is called the inflation. So this gap, it is called the inflationary gap. Inflationary gap. This gap is the inflationary gap. Okay, because this much is the excess demand. Due to that, the price level increases. That impact is the price level increases. So if price level increases, that's called the inflationary gap. So what is the inflationary gap? Then what is the definition of this inflationary gap? So the definition of the inflationary gap is that I'm writing here the definition of inflationary gap. It is a measure of excess of aggregate demand. It is a measure of excess of aggregate demand measure of excess of aggregate over the level of output, over the level of output, over the level of output, over the level of output at full employment level. At full employment. At full employment. Okay. And what is the effect of this? Effect is the inflation occurs. The effect of this, the inflation occurs. Right? Okay. Now we shall describe the after that deflationary gap. What is the deflationary gap? It is just the opposite of the inflationary gap. In case of the inflationary gap, what happens that the aggregate demand increases and AD exceeds the aggregate supply, so that the inflation takes place, price level increases. Deflationary gap, it's just opposite, where the aggregate supply will be more than the aggregate demand. As a result, the price level of the goods and services that will fall. That is called the deflation. Okay. Now, how the deflation will occur? So, what is the deflationary gap? If I write down the definition, it is the amount of amount by which the actual aggregate demand falls short of the aggregate supply. Falls short of the aggregate supply. at the full employment level. At a full employment. Okay, full employment. So let's start with one diagram that it is like this. It is like this, that aggregate supply, that is Y, aggregate demand, that is D. Okay, that is now that if we see that this is the our aggregate demand curve, AD curve. Okay. So this is equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M, and our aggregate supply curve is this. This curve. Okay. Now this will be called the equilibrium point. Similarly, let's say this is E, and the equilibrium level of national income is YE. This is at, remember, at full employment level. This is at full employment. At full employment level. Okay. Now what happens that suppose the aggregate demand decreases. Aggregate demand can be decreased by anything. Say consumption expenditure decreases, or say government expenditure decreases, or investment expenditure decreases. That could be the number of reasons are there. Now you know that right now at present what is going on due to the COVID-19, that coronavirus, that throughout the world that we have seen that the growth of each and every economy that is going down, because the most of the country they have already locked down. Okay, for the number for many days. So that investors are they are having their doubts in their mind whether they will be investing their money for the business or not. So the level of investment is very less, very low, or no investment at all. So demand is less, investment is less, everything is less. So what happens that the aggregate demand of the economy that is falling down. So if it will fall down, then it will shift to the left side. That will be AD prime. This is the new aggregate demand curve. Okay. So if this is a new aggregate demand curve, then this new equilibrium that will take place here, let's say at E1. So if at E1, then the new level of income that will be Y1. So what happens? You see that initially this was the demand. Demand was this much. Now the demand is less, but the supply can be this much. EYE can be the supply. Aggregate supply can be EY, YE. But now the demand is less. Okay. So how much is the demand is less? Say if I write here, so AE amount demand is going down. AE amount demand is less, or E amount. So this much of the demand, so less demand. That means here the supply, or you can say the less demand means more supply. So excess supply is equal to E amount. And for that what will happen that simple the price level of the goods and services that is falling down, and this is called the deflationary gap. Deflationary gap. Why this gap actually? Because the aggregate supply is more than the aggregate demand. That's the reason why the price level of the goods and services that is falling down. And this gap, EA gap, it is called the deflationary gap at full employment level of income. I hope that this concept is clear to you, that still if you are having any doubt, then you can write in the chat box